Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're styling things up a bit, diving into the world of sass. We'll be looking at what makes it so powerful and why it's become a staple for so many developers.
Yeah, it's more than just making your CSS pretty. Sass is like, think of it as that trusty sidekick that makes everything in the CSS world smoother, more powerful, and honestly, way more fun.
Definitely. Now we've got a ton of great info to get through from our research on sass, what it is, what it does, how it works. And one term that kept popping up was CSS preprocessor. What does that even mean?
So in the simplest terms, it's like having a translator for your code. You write your styles in Sass, which is designed to be super organized and efficient. Then Sass takes over and converts it into regular CSS that browsers can actually understand.
Okay, so you get to write cleaner code, but the browser still gets what it needs in the end. Makes sense. But what makes sass so special? What can it do that regular CSS can't? Our notes mention something called variables, which sounds promising.
Oh, variables are a game changer, especially when you're dealing with large websites or design systems. Imagine you're trying to maintain a consistent style across hundreds of pages. Instead of having to hunt down every single instance of, say, your primary brand color, you can define it once as a variable in Sass, and bam, it's instantly accessible and consistent throughout your entire project.
It's like a magic spell for consistency. No more digging through lines of code trying to find that one hex code.
Exactly. And it's not limited to just colors. You can store any CSS property as a variable, font sizes, spacing values, you name it. This makes your code super flexible and adaptable.
That's amazing. Now, another thing that caught my eye in the research was this idea of nesting in sass. To be honest, I'm not always the most organized coder.
I hear you. But trust me, even if you're not a stickler for neatness, nesting can be a lifesaver. It essentially lets you structure your Sass code in a way that mirrors the structure of your HTML. So instead of having selectors scattered all over your style sheet, you can group them logically.
So it's like organizing your code into those neat little bento boxes, everything in its place. I could see how that would save a lot of headaches down the line, especially on a big project.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of making life easier, we have to talk about mixins.
Okay, yeah, mixins. This is where things start to get really powerful, right? Our notes describe them as being like reusable code snippets.
Exactly. Think of a style you use repeatedly in your CSS. Maybe it's the styling for buttons or your navigation menu. With mixins, you define that set of styles just once, and then you can include that mixin wherever you need it in your code. No more copy-pasting the same styles over and over again.
It's like having a shortcut for your CSS. I like it. So we've got variables for consistency, nesting for organization, and mixins to save time. Sass is sounding better by the minute. But how do you actually write this stuff? It seems like our research mentions two different ways.
You're right. There are two syntax options for Sass, the original indented syntax, and then there's SCSS, which stands for Sassy CSS.
Sassy CSS. Love it. Okay, so what's the difference? Should our listeners be worried about choosing the wrong one?
Not at all. Think of it like choosing between writing in shorthand or longhand. They both get the job done. SCSS is more commonly used, and it's designed to be very readable, even for people who are used to traditional CSS.
That makes sense. So are there any downsides to using SCSS?
None that come to mind. It's fully compatible with CSS. In fact, you can even paste regular CSS directly into an SCSS file, and it will work just fine. But the beauty of SCSS is that it lets you do all these extra cool things that regular CSS can't handle, like nesting your properties, which makes your code super concise.
So you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Now, I always like to see what's actually being used in the real world, and it seems like sass is pretty popular, right? Our research turned up some pretty big names.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of popular front-end frameworks like Bootstrap are actually built with Sass. It gives developers huge amounts of flexibility for customization.
Right, so you're not just stuck with whatever the framework gives you out of the box.
Yeah.
You can tweak it to perfectly match your vision. And on that note, how does sass play with other CSS methodologies like BEM or SMS CSS? These are all about writing organized, maintainable CSS.
Right, you got it. And they work together beautifully. Sass gives you the tools, and these methodologies provide the guidelines, so you can leverage the organizational power of BEM or SMSCS while still enjoying all the benefits of Sass.
And to top it off, we found that a lot of IDs and design tools have really good support for sass, which makes sense. It's everywhere these days. I even saw that Adobe XD has some sass integration now.
It just goes to show how much Sass has become a part of the fabric of front-end development. It's exciting to think about what this level of integration could mean for the future of web design.
So to sum it all up, SAS isn't just about writing styles. It's about working smarter, building more organized and powerful systems for creating amazing websites.
And as we see sass become even more integrated into how we build for the web, it really makes you wonder, what's next? Could this lead to entirely new approaches to front-end development as a whole?
That's definitely something to think about. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into SAS. Hopefully you're feeling as sassy about it as I am now. Big thanks to you for sharing your expertise with us.
Happy to be here.
And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, happy coding.
Yo.